Scott Frost made the decision to put Davi Belfort in at the end of the game, but could Davi be the answer moving forward?
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G. Turn us up, turn us on, turn it out. I'm here with my good friend Andrew Glucko, senior writer at UCFKnightzone.com to talk a little UCF of football here on a Monday afternoon. Andrew, there was lots of consternation over the decision to put Davi Belfort in at the end of the game there. A lot of people arguing that the play was there. However, the throw was late. So right call, maybe bad throw. We're going to dig more into Davi Belfort's play and whether or not Scott Frost should move on from Taven Jackson at quarterback. And then we're going to talk about play calling. I think play calling left a lot to be desired on Saturday as well, too. Texas Tech is up next. Does UCF have a prayer against a formidable Texas Tech team with a $30 million roster? Let's start at the top. Davi Belfort went into the game, showed some athleticism, man. Keeping drives alive, got UCF in position. You reported after the game that Scott Frost said, we wanted to go for the win and not play for overtime. I did want to get your thoughts there because we didn't really get your thoughts after the game on this. Do you think that was the right decision, or should they have just tried to get more football played there at the end of the game?
Well, you have to, recognize the roster that you have. And, Belfort comes in. He didn't have a lot of warm-up time. He was kind of thrown in late. Taven Jackson was dealing with a hamstring issue, and that's what Frost said. So they decided to make the change just to see if they can do something. Well, it wasn't his arm that got them down the field. It was his legs. So at that point, I would have run the ball again because Preston Cushman was one of the players in the post-game interviews. And he talked about how energized the team was when Belfort came out there. Because if you look at the run blocking, comparing when Jackson was in versus when Belfort was in, they looked like two different teams. There was a lot more energy. The adrenaline spike, there was that last drive. They were in the zone and they were creating some massive holes that were creating, disruption and plays. I would have kept it on the ground. You had the timeout. He even, Frost even said, I was saving it. They had the timeout. At that point, go for the tie because, well, let me phrase that. You run the ball because it's working.
Right.
If you get close to get in, punch it in. If not, you've got the kick because you've got a great kicker. There's been people online complaining like one way or the other about this particular pass. Was it the right play? And I say it wasn't. And the reason why is it may have been a good play on paper.
Right.
But a good play is only a good play if you have the right tools at disposal. Davi's coming in with a cold arm. He's still, got a little bit of deer in headlights. I mean, look what he did in his other passing plays. He just kind of stood there. And that had to, conventionally play a role in the decision making. Like, well, maybe we shouldn't do that. But they went for it. He hesitated. He underthrew the pass, and it got picked off. A more experienced quarterback, a little more pocket savvy would have, made the read a little bit faster and put more air on it. Because as you know, when you make those kind of passes, you want it to be either your receiver gets it or nobody gets it. So I don't think it was a good play call. Wrong guy, behind the center doing it. And, Houston already came out and flat out said after the game, they didn't respect Belfort's passing. They kind of saw the look in his eyes. Yeah. And when you're dealing with a backup quarterback and he's taking off constantly running, that's his skill set. Because if he was the complete package, he'd be starting, and he wasn't. So there's an incomplete player there. And they realized very quickly the incomplete side is the passing side. So they didn't respect the pass. But he carved them up on the run enough that they were like, all right, we gotta respect the run. But they had no film prep on Belfort, which is why he surprised them so much on that final drive. I think They got the field goal. The defense was in a very good bend but not break mentality, even though they were getting thin on depth. They were playing with some spirit, and I think they could have at least held their own in some of the overtime because they're not long sustained drives. It's just maybe 8 plays at the most or so, usually less. And the offense, I think with the energy they were getting, they settle down and make some smarter decisions. Again, I don't think it was the right play call. It certainly wasn't with the right personnel, right quarterback, and the rest is history.
Econ advisor saying Taven injured at the end of the third quarter. He intended to insert Dahvie next, but Houston's long drive held the ball most of the fourth quarter. Great point here by Econ advisor.
Yeah, he had a hammy problem.
Yeah, also comes back and says with an untested QB, an OT would expose any nerves or inexperience. I get this. I really do get this, but I also think more football is better. I think it was such a low percentage, chance of him actually executing that. It was the equivalent of buying a lottery ticket. Just get to overtime, man, and see if you can make something happen. I am curious before we move on, though, why do you think Jacari Brown was not an option here?
He's still banged up.
Okay.
And it was actually brought up today during their Scott Frost's press conference. He was kind of viewed as the emergency third quarterback.
Okay.
While he's not on the injured report, he's still not feeling 100%. So he and Belfort are kind of interchangeable at this point, as far as, skill sets. In fact, Belfort's probably a better passer than Jacari Brown, at least in my opinion, from what I've seen. But they weren't going to use him unless they really had to. And Belfort gave them no reason not to use him.
Yeah, look, play calling was a topic of discussion after the game, especially on our post game. Lots of lively comments there on the post game about whether or not the play calling was up to snuff. We're going to get to the break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about play calling. The segment brought to you by our title sponsor, FanDuel. Get on the action with FanDuel, guys. New customers get $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. Download the app today. Get in on the action. Let's get to the break, and when we come back, we'll talk more about play calling here coming up against Texas Tech. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Wayfair. The holiday season is right around the corner, and that means it's time to get your home ready. Whether you need more seating for guests, cozy new linens, or fun serveware for holiday hosting, Wayfair's Black Friday sale is here to help you make your experience shine and your space shine. And the best part, you don't have to wait. Wayfair's Black Friday deals are happening all month long with up to 70% off. That's right, 70% off everything from sofas to spatulas. Look, we got a lot of getting ready for the holidays to do in the Gittins household here. So we're going to be on Wayfair quite a bit here. You want to be on Wayfair too. Don't miss out on early Black Friday deals. Head to wayfair.com now to shop Wayfair's Black Friday sale up to 70% off. That's wayfair.com. Sale ends December the 7th, guys. Play calling. What did you think about Scott Frost as a play caller? In our group chat, there seemed to be a lot of, in our UCF group chat, there seemed to be a lot of I'm not sure I'm feeling the play calling here. Look, Scott Frost cut his cloth as a play caller. I think he's still one of the best play callers in college football. But, personnel has a lot to do with play calling. Again, your quarterback gets injured at the end of the third quarter. Chat, you guys are in here live. What did you think about the play calling on Saturday, and how do you get that fixed headed into Texas Tech?
Man, if I had a nickel every time Scott Frost ran a bubble screen, I'd be a wealthy man.
Okay.
The problem is you went to certain wells too many times, and eventually it just loses its effectiveness. Obviously you can only do so much with your playbook based on the talent that you have. UCF's getting thin in a few places. Marcus Burke's out. Obviously, Cam Fancher's out. Eventually Taven Jackson was out. And let's not even talk about the defensive side of the ball and all the injuries that they're dealing with. It's just brutal. Miles Montgomery went down during the game, so it kind of limits some of the things that you do. But like the screens. those are tough to make work because you can only tap that well so many times before they just key in on it. And it got to the point where, they would have 4-yard losses on a screen. They were just getting blown up, and they got a couple in there that worked, but by and large, they were largely ineffective, and they kept going back to it. And it's just like a head scratch. I would rather have a handoff up the middle, up here, up the 1 through 5 holes, or more so than a wide receiver bubble screen. I'm tired of seeing the screens, man. Yeah, I'd rather. There's a better chance of Jaden Nixon breaking 6 yards on a carry up the middle than there is of a bubble screen actually working. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Look, play calling is going to have to produce a lot more yards. Only 282 yards of total offense produced by the play calling versus Houston in a game that UCF lost by 3 points. Andrew, I mean, look, at the end of the day, you've got to show proof of concept here. And I hear a lot of people saying, God, I can't wait until King Archer gets here, as if he's magically going to produce a ton of offense. Look, man.
It doesn't magically happen.
Yeah. Look, but I can tell you play calling and who the play caller is can change a lot. I'm just saying, I cover another school who has struggled to move the ball all year. They fired their coach.
You're not kidding.
And suddenly it looked like a whole different offense, right? So it does matter. I think it does matter. And, if you've got to figure out what works for this roster and for whatever quarterback. So whether it's Belfort or Jackson coming up here. Now, I know you said he had a presser today. Did we get an update on Taven Jackson and his health?
I didn't catch that part. I was remote. So unfortunately, outside of sports stuff, i.e. my house is being repainted, kind of got in the way of being able to do the full press conference. So I had to kind of pick and choose my moments. But I will be going back now that they're done working for the day. We
usually cover, for the record, just for our listeners, we usually cover the press conference on Tuesday morning. So we will go back and take a look there and update on everything. I know Econ Advisor says Jacari has a shoulder injury, Frost said. So again.
Yeah, he's been banged up for a while.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I do want to point out, Mike, is, and we've talked about this before. We talked about this preseason. Let's talk about Jaden Nixon for a moment and how he stepped in when Miles Montgomery got hurt. And you saw a different running game. You saw the scat back, a very powerful scat back, I might say. A couple times he was carrying 4 guys with him as he kept those legs moving, moving the ball 5-6 yards down the field. That was, obviously we don't wish injuries on anyone, but I have to say I was very excited to see Jaden Nixon take over that RB1 spot. I always found him to be a better running back than Miles. May not be the spirit, the heart and soul of the team. Miles is definitely, that spiritual leader. However, Nixon, aside from that guy just has so much energy. I love when he comes out to a press conference. He has so much energy in him, and it's very positive. But this is a guy who's been RB1 before. He knows how to manage it, and with the offensive line struggling to create holes, he's got a low center of gravity. He can squeeze through some tight areas, and you saw it in effect on Friday. And I think if Miles is out for a prolonged period of time, I think this might not be a terrible thing for the running game because it'll allow Nixon to kind of stretch his legs a bit. We know he is a potential home run hitter more so than any of the backs on the team. He has that chance of just breaking it big for an 80+ yard run. He just, he gets in the open field and he's gone. But we saw the power side of him on Friday that we really haven't seen much of because he would always come in as a change of pace guy and just nothing would really work. But as a lead back, you saw him kind of hit that extra gear of power and he's hitting and he's moving the pile. This little guy. I would love to see more of that. Against Baylor, UCF abandoned the run. They did not fully abandon the
Agreed.
run here. The game was closer. They were able to utilize it more after Montgomery went down.
30 rush attempts to 30 pass attempts. So a dead even run pass ratio versus Houston. I agree with you completely. I bemoan the fact that they abandoned the run against a Baylor team that you can run on, man. Come on. What are we doing here? Look, UCF has Texas Tech up next, and they will prove to be a formidable opponent for UCF. We'll talk about the challenge. Does UCF have a prayer in this game? Don't say anything yet, Andrew. I see your face. We'll talk about that next on Locked On UCF. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Guys, the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with our friends at FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks, and you can even combine all your live bets into a same game parlay for a chance at an even bigger payout. That's my favorite thing to do, so it should be yours too. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers up to $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com, sign up today, and play your game, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Appreciate our friends at FanDuel for sponsoring this segment. Great partners here with Locked On. Look, Texas Tech is good.
They're pretty good.
Yeah, and I don't want to sit here and pump a whole lot of sunshine. I have not picked against UCF a whole lot this year. I'm not giving them no chance, but I'm not giving them a ton of a chance in this one based on what we saw. At this point in the season, you just kind of are who you are, right? Like, I think we've seen – I don't know if we've seen the best. This is a one-loss Texas Tech team. They're 6-1 in the Big 12 here. Their quarterback, Morton, has thrown for 1,969 yards and 16 touchdowns to 4 interceptions so far. This is a formidable task for UCF. The matchup predictor giving UCF only an 8.6% chance to win this football game. The spread is 23.5. 23.5. It opened at 23.5. It's still at 23.5. There's an over-under of 47.5. UCF getting plus 1,300 on the money line there, if that tells you how much of an underdog they are. Talk to me, man. Look, you just take this one on the chin and that's it, right? Like, I mean, I want to give them some hope, but I don't think this one's going to be very competitive.
There's the old adage, any team can win any game on any given day.
Yeah,
things
play down the competition a little bit here, though. Yeah,
things happen, and sometimes the better team doesn't win. But here's the truth: Texas Tech is the better team.
They are.
I think the spread is very practical. None of Texas Tech's games have been close. I mean, look what they did to BYU over the weekend. They looked head and shoulders better than them, and that was a top 10 matchup. I mean,
9-7.
It was just amazing to see how good Texas Tech looked against BYU. Now, here's the other thing. UCF's going to Lubbock. Lubbock was a tough place to play, even when Texas Tech's only an average team.
Mm-hmm.
Texas Tech is in full force. This is the team that they wanted to buy. They're looking for their first conference championship. They are willing to spend any amount of money to get there, and boy, did they, pony up. No tortillas being thrown in this one, but I don't expect UCF to win this one. I don't expect UCF to win on the road at BYU, but stranger things have happened. And if they manage to steal one, who knows what happens, against Oklahoma State. I hope the fans still show up at all. That one's kind of the in-between game on the 22nd. That's already been announced. It's going to be on ESPN Plus because it is the snoozer matchup of the week. Two kind of pretty hapless teams right now playing against each other for, conference dormancy. Who will be in the basement of the Big 12? Would it be the Cowboys of Oklahoma State or the Knights of UCF? But before that, we get to watch a potential slaughter in Lubbock, Texas.
Yeah, look, still, they only managed 368 yards of total offense versus BYU in a game that they won 29-7. That game was really about BYU's inability to kind of convert on third down. They just couldn't stay on the field. Only 3 of 14 on third down. Texas Tech just running them off the field on third down here. But time of possession actually almost dead even, favored BYU by a whole 60 seconds. So if UCF has a chance in this one, it's going to be because they're going to have to turn the ball over. Morton was he was pretty much about 50% passing in this game here. He's 60. I think he's 65% on the season. So, pretty good. And again, he's got a 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. So not turning the ball over a ton here. But if you're UCF, you've got to capitalize. Remember, I called a pick six this past weekend versus Houston. They got it. I think they're going to need a couple of them if they're going to survive here. And although the game was close versus Houston, 30-27, it can't be understated that the defense chipped in some points there too. So if you're UCF, you just have not been able to generate enough offense to win some of these close games here. And now, if we're looking glass half full, they were in that game with Houston despite only 282 yards of offense. So maybe there's some promise there, for UCF fans to look forward to. They've got an uphill battle to a bowl game. They've got a huge uphill battle to a bowl game. We have talked about this on this very show. Can UCF make a bowl game? Losing to Houston was a huge setback. They still have Oklahoma State on the schedule, but they're going to have to pull a massive upset of either Texas Tech or BYU at this point. BYU might be the more realistic of the two if we were to pick one. I'm not sure if they'll have enough to get it done against either one of those, but certainly we'll see if Scott Frost can make any late season adjustments here to get UCF into the conversation. I'm going to save your prediction for later in the week on this game here, but what would you like to see here? Do you think that there's a chance that they maybe try to spark this offense by going with Davi Belfort if Taven Jackson is maybe a little iffy, in his health going into this one?
I mean, it all depends on how the week plays out. How bad is the hammy?
Or do you play is an 80% Taven Jackson better than 100% Davi Belfort?
I mean, I would rather put Taven Jackson out there. You have the experience. You're going on the road to a very hostile place. As I said before, Lubbock is a tough place to play, even when Texas Tech's only an average team. It's a tough place. And right now that team is on fire. So I think Belfort may have some massive deer in headlight moments there that I think Jackson would be a little more comfortable with. It really depends on how his health is. If his hammy's just really beat up and he just can't move, then you may have to go with Belfort. It's not ideal, but you got to put what you feel is the best player out there to at least keep you in the game. You're going to obviously if he does it, it's going to be a very run heavy game. And this is not the offensive line to do it, but I mean, stranger things have happened. That's why we love this game. Strange things happen. Like I even said, space game, strange things happen. We had our first, we witnessed the first time that UCF had a hat trick interception wise by a single player.
Right.
It was never happened before until that game, space game. Just weird things happen. The fact that UCF was in the game despite being blown out offensively, they were there until the bitter end. It just shows that game is special, and things just happen. And now it's come back down to earth. It's back to the regular grind. UCF's got to be very smart on how they practice this week. A lot of players injured. I mean, the depth is just absolutely been brutalized.
UCF
over the last couple of games. I mean, just Friday alone, Montgomery, Nigel Kelly, Malachi Lawrence, McDonald. I mean, all these guys went down. Then we already talked about Jackson. I mean, you're talking a slew of players getting hurt. The question is how severe and how this team tools. I mean, the defensive ends are just absolutely decimated. This was such a strong position group, and there's so little left, and it's not. It sucks to say, oh, it's not fair. I mean, that's why we play the game. But I mean, it's just the bad luck that this team's had this game with the injury bug.
Yeah, look, Econ Advisor says UCF loses habits. Pass rush and Morton can pick teams apart if no big rush. He also says it makes sense to start Dahvie versus Texas Tech, give him playing time to work with the first string, which he hasn't done much of. Do they practice?
I disagree with that. I totally disagree with that. This is not the game you do that.
Well,
you do that next week.
You need to do that. You need to practice him as the starter this week. So we'll get some information on what.
Yeah, I would not try to. Obviously the goal is see if Taven can get out there. But if you're gonna throw in the towel, which is basically what that is throwing in the towel of the season. You do that against Oklahoma State. It's lower hanging fruit. You're at home. It's a better environment for a guy to get his first start. I mean, you're putting him against the best team you're going to see all year in the most hostile environment you're going to see all year. I don't think that's a good idea if you can avoid it.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Look, it's going to be fun to watch. We'll have a watch party again on Saturday, watching the UCF Knights at the Texas Tech Raiders here. This game is going to be at 3:30 Eastern on Fox. So I will be dialed in front of my computer.
Nationwide bloodbath.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, look, I'm not giving them no chance, but certainly it's going to be
tough
for the Knights. Yeah. Andrew Glucko, senior writer, UCFKnightZone.com. I want to thank you for joining me on today's show, guys. Thank you so much for making us your first listener every day here at Locked On UCF. We'll be back at you guys tomorrow with more Locked On UCF.